Hello, welcome to academic writing. Today we are going to deal with Unit 5. We have vocabulary and grammar for academic writing. This unit actually helps us to improve our writing. We know that any writing includes vocabulary and grammar. Vocabulary means list of words, and grammar is actually the rules of a language. And these two are fundamental to the skill of writing. In that we will see what is the importance of revising words and sentences. You know what is revision? Whenever we write something, especially formal writing, we need to edit what we have written, because once we submit our writing we cannot get it back and then do the editing. So we should be very careful in doing the editing before submitting our writing. So this revision will help us to realize our mistakes while editing. It also helps to improve words and sentences, and then remove unnecessary words and expressions. Sometimes we may use more than what is required, more words than needed, and some of the outdated expressions, especially the words and expressions that we use in our conversation. So such words and expressions can be removed and make sentences and paragraphs clear and effective. Sometimes there can creep in certain vagueness or lack of clarity in our writing. Now, there are some suggestions for making our writing more effective. The first one is ensure your vocabulary is appropriate. So whenever we undertake a writing, the vocabulary or the list of words included should be suitable for that particular writing. Next is avoid using conversational style, colloquial and slang expressions, and non-standard diction. So we know that formal writing requires certain standard. So we need to avoid the ordinary, everyday colloquial language that we use in our daily conversation. Next, use sentences varying in length, word order and types. We will see later the different types of sentences. So what we should keep in mind is that the sentences, the length, the type of sentence that we use should be different, not the same. Next, eliminate redundant expressions and wordy sentences. Redundant means repeating. Certain expressions like return back, they are actually repeating. Next is use parallelism. We will see later in detail what is parallelism and all that. Next is maintain the tense. Means once we start in a particular tense, we should be able to continue in the same tense rather than changing it. 7, it is remove weak phrases and use strong verbs. We find that some of the phrases that is overused or used almost every day, such phrases can be removed and then some strong verbs can be used instead. Now we are going in detail about vocabulary. We know that in order to maintain the formal nature of our academic writing, selection of words is very, very crucial. That is the vocabulary that we use. We know that in a formal writing our sentences should be precise and clear. So we have a few suggestions to improve vocabulary. And that first one is we need to familiarize with academic word list. All these points we will deal in detail later. Avoid informal words and expressions. Use discourse markers. Make your writing less wordy. These are some of the points that we are going to see in detail. First, academic word list. It is a list of words collected by some of the academicians, and one of the earliest compilers of this academic word list, or AWL, is Averil Coxhead of Victoria University, New Zealand. Now, some of the examples of such academic word list is given here, like analysis, approach, assessment, assume, available, benefit, concept, consistent, data, estimate, evidence, etc. You can refer to table 5.1. So here what we need to focus is that when we are writing, especially formal writing, we need to achieve certain standard, and we know that any writing, the fundamental elements are the words, vocabulary. That's why we need to improve our vocabulary. So there are certain words and phrases we need to avoid. For any writing, we need to choose or select the list of words which are appropriate or suitable for that particular occasion. So here we know that we should not use the ordinary conversation language that we use every day, because that need not be standard words. There are certain words expressing doubt, like appears, suggests, may, might, usually, probably, possibly, etc. These words actually shows lack of clarity or lack of certainty. We are not sure. That's why we should be very careful in using these words. Unless these words are very essential, we better avoid these words. Then we have some samples for alternative expressions. That means we have certain words we need to substitute. A list is given in table 5.3. Now we will see a few examples. The rest can be referred by you. So we have in one column we have got the list of things to avoid. In the next column we have got things to include. First one is a contracted form. That means we use short forms in our daily conversation, like don't, can't, won't, and all that. But in formal writing, we better avoid and use the full form, like do not, cannot, or will not. Then we have personal pronouns like I, we, you. Now, why we should avoid these personal pronouns? Because when we use this, it will tend to be more of subjective. Formal writing should be more of objective rather than our personal feelings or our views. Next we have informal verbs like good, bad, gone, put off, find out, keep, give. These words can be replaced by acceptable, inferior, continue, postpone, discover, identify, preserve, provide, and so on. Next we come to discourse markers. Now what is discourse? Discourse can be anything as short as a sentence or as long as a novel. These are actually words and expressions used to connect one discourse to another. That means we have got certain words to link or to connect ideas or sentences. Such words are called discourse markers. They are also known as sentence connectors, linking words or phrases, and transition signals. Some of the examples are given there, like as a result, for instance, in addition, in other words, in spite of, in the same way, furthermore, however, in conclusion, on the contrary, on the whole, to a great extent to begin with, incidentally, and the list goes on. Now we are going to see the functions of these discourse markers. How do we use these discourse markers? They are mainly used for sequencing ideas. Sequencing means ordering, putting them in proper order. Next is balancing contrasting points. Contrasting points may be different points of view, not the same or similar. Next, introducing a new idea. Then presenting a counter argument. Counter argument means opposing argument. You are opposing or arguing against a particular point. Next, adding some new information. Persuading, you are trying to force the other person to believe what you say. Then structuring, again kind of ordering. Generalizing, that means from a particular instance you go to the general, that is generalizing. Then changing of subject, you want to shift from one subject to another. Then giving examples while citing an instance. You can give more examples in order to make your point clearer. Then classifying points means grouping them. And summarizing or concluding. You have to conclude the writing. So certain words are used to conclude. So these are some of the functions of discourse markers. Next we come to sentence. It means completeness of sentence. Now another main problem that we encounter in writing is sometimes we leave out sentences midway without completing. So it can happen to us. So a sentence is a set of words that contain a subject, a verb and a complete idea. That is the definition of sentence. So usually you find a subject, a verb and also a complete idea in a sentence. Sometimes maybe subject is missing, verb is missing, or complete idea will not be there. So such sentences are called incomplete sentences. Now completeness of a sentence is determined by its ability to stand alone. Now we know that there are different types of clauses. We have got the main clause, subclause or subordinate clause. So usually it is a main clause that can stand alone. It is also known as the independent clause. The other clause usually depends on the main clause. That is called the subordinate clause. So usually if it is a sentence, it should be able to stand alone without any support. Now there are different types of sentences. They can be simple sentence, compound sentence, complex or compound complex sentences. We will see in detail what are they. So when you come to simple sentence, the example given there is Susanna sang a song. So here you have got a subject, verb and object. So usually a simple sentence has only one verb. So here you have got sang, which is the only verb. Now compound. Compound means there are two verbs. Susanna sang melodiously and her song was well appreciated. So the two verbs underlined are sang and appreciated. So you have got two independent sentences joined together. That is why it is called compound sentences. Now when we come to complex, a complex sentence contains a main clause and one or two subclauses. Here in the example given, because I was engrossed in the song sung by Susanna, I did not notice the arrival of my bus. So here we have got a main clause and a subclause. So I did not notice the arrival of my bus. That is an independent clause, that is the main clause. The first one, because I was engrossed in the song sung by Susanna, is a subclause because it is not independent. It depends on the main clause. Next we come to compound complex sentence. A compound complex sentence means it will have two or more independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses. Look at the example given there. I was in the bus station waiting for a bus that goes to my village, and I got an opportunity to listen to Susanna's song. So here I have underlined two clauses, and you find that both these clauses are independent clauses. For example, I was in the bus station. That is an independent clause. That is a main clause. And I got an opportunity to listen to Susanna's song is again another independent or main clause. So both these can stand alone without depending on the other clause, which is waiting for a bus that goes to my village. That is a subclause. Next we are going to see fragments. Fragment means actually a piece. It is an incomplete sentence or disconnected piece of a main clause. So we know that a sentence should be complete with the subject, verb or an object. Only then the idea becomes clear. But if anything is missing, it becomes a fragment. So it usually happens when a subject or verb is absent in a sentence. Suppose you miss out the subject or verb, then this fragment can happen. Now how to correct this fragment? The easiest way to correct a fragment is to remove the period, that is full stop, and link it to an adjoining sentence. So the best way is to connect it to the next or the sentence that is close to this particular fragment. Then you will get a complete sentence. One example of fragment is given here. When I was in the university. So here you find it is incomplete. When you are speaking during conversation, maybe it can give a complete sense, but in writing it is incomplete. Next, another very important factor in writing is subject verb agreement. This is a very common error that we find in our writing. This is also known as the rule of concord, that the subject has to agree with the verb usually in number, that is singular or plural. The rule is a singular subject takes a singular verb and a plural subject takes a plural verb. Now this rule can be easily followed in simple sentences and all that, but when we come to complex sentences where we have got compound subjects, like more than one subject, like neither nor, when you have got two subjects or two nouns, one may be singular and the other may be plural, then we get confused. Or indefinite pronouns like anybody, somebody, nobody, and then we have got inverted subjects. Sometimes subject can come before or after the verb. Usually the subject comes before the verb, but in certain sentences like did I see you, here you find the verb did is coming before the subject. Or the use of hardly did I see them. So here the subject comes after the verb. And then we have got collective nouns like fleet of ship, bunch of flowers, pack of cards. So how do we follow this rule in this kind of situations? So unless we are thorough with this rule, we can easily make mistakes in subject verb agreement. Then for your reference, we have got the table 5.8, which you can refer later. Next point is consistent use of tenses. Now another important rule that we need to follow is that once we start with a particular tense, usually present tense, we have to continue with the same tense. Otherwise what happens is that we start with the present tense, then go back to past tense or come back to future tense. That will not help in your writing. So there should be uniformity in our tense. Better to follow a particular tense throughout your writing. For example, if you are narrating something, what happened in the past, then you can prefer the past tense, because you are talking about something that happened already. But if it is for analyzing something or reviewing a book, it's always better to use the present tense. Next point is parallelism. Now what is parallelism? It is a stylistic feature in writing where ideas are presented using grammatically similar or structurally identical words and expressions. So when you look at the example, you will find it easy. The example given here is: the poem is lyrical, long, interesting and meaningful. So you look at the underlined words: lyrical, long, interesting and meaningful. They are all adjectives. So the mistake that we make is sometimes instead of adjective we may include a verb in between. So that is a grammatical mistake. When we have continuous words like this, better to use the same categorical list. That is, either use all verbs or all adjectives, like that. Now if you look at the second sentence, you find Kiran worked eagerly, consistently and evenly. You find all these verbs, all these words are actually adverbs: eagerly, consistently and evenly. So this is actually the meaning of parallelism. When we are using certain words, they should be belonging to the same category, not different categories. You cannot mix different categories of words. We come to the next one, that is avoid wordiness. Now what is wordiness? Wordiness is nothing but using too many words, excessive use of words. It can make your writing unnecessarily lengthier. So when we use too many words to express something, your writing may tend to become very lengthy. One example is given here of a lengthy sentence. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker. Now the same idea can be expressed: I am pleased to introduce our speaker. So you find less words are used and the idea is very clear. Now we have got some suggestions given here to eliminate wordiness, how to avoid or reduce excessive use of words. First one is replace stock phrases with one word equivalents. Now stock phrases means the usual the regular phrases that we use every day. Now sometimes these phrases can become overused. So better to substitute these kind of phrases with one word that is a substitute. For example, in close proximity to. Now this phrase can be replaced with a near. Another point is avoid redundant expressions like advance reservation, meet together, repeat again, return back, etc. So these are called redundant expressions. Actually, one word is enough, like reservation is enough. Reservation means actually you are booking in advance. So the word advance can be avoided. Next is meet together. The word together can be avoided. Meeting means coming together. Another one is repeat again. Repeat means saying something or doing something again. So you can avoid the word again. Just like return back. Return means either to take or give back. So the word back can be eliminated. Then we have got more ways to avoid wordiness. Avoid sentence openers like it, there is. Sometimes we tend to start sentences with it or there is. So such kind of sentence can be avoided. Then avoid weak and wordy verbs. For example, come to a conclusion, we can use simply one word, conclude, or make a decision can be replaced with a decide. Next is reduce the use of that and which. Now some sentences we can easily avoid words like that and which. Next, eliminate unnecessary qualifiers and intensifiers like really, most, always, usually, etc. These kind of words are known as qualifiers or intensifiers like very, quite, just. All these are intensifiers and qualifiers. Such words can be avoided. So how to simplify our sentence or structure? One example is given here. It is unknown whether the medicine is effective. Now that construction can be modified and made simple. Like the medicine's effectiveness is unknown. So we use less words here, but the idea is very clear and very simple. So with that we come to the end of this session. Thank you.